This podcast is part of the Deluxe Edition Network. To find other great shows on the network, head over to deluxeeditionnetwork.com. That's deluxeeditionnetwork.com.
Hello, everyone, and welcome back to another episode of the Stephen Jarvis and Friends podcast featuring Mark Bensett Jr. I'm Stephen Jarvis. That's Mark. And today with us, we have the legendary Tom Mcloughlin, who not only directed one of the greatest Friday the 13th movies, but also had a lot of other amazing projects. And we'll hear a lot about him tonight on this live stream. Tom, how are you doing today, sir?
I think I'm okay. We'll see how we do here.
He's not floating down the road, so that's a good thing.
Well, I did have to go to the store today, so I actually have the a recreation of the canoe from Friday the 13th. So I canoed my way down the little streets in Burbank here, and got my food and canoed back. So
that's cool.
It does pay off to have a canoe, even though you normally drive, but things have changed here. We're going down is all I can say. So enjoy wherever you are. If you're not in California, you're safe.
So I know a lot of people want us to ask you about Friday the 13th Part 6. So you know what? Let's get into it. Your vision for Friday the 13th Part 6, you wanted to bring Elias in, and just tell us how that almost did happen and why it didn't happen.
Well, okay. If you want to actually see or read the scene that was written for the ending of the movie, it is in the original production script. And this wonderful guy, Joe Madre, did a book on my life and films about, this has been like 3-4 years ago, maybe 5. Jeez, you lose track of time when you get elderly. But he included in the back of the book, basically, a treatment that had it in there. And then there somewhere, if you go to a convention or whatever where I'm at, I do sell that original script as well for people that would like to see what was intended. But the idea for me was, I thought, well, watching all of them back to back at Paramount at a screening when I took on the job, I went, what hasn't been done that could be still organic, to the original story, because I wanted to not go someplace else. It had to be there at the camp. And what elements hadn't we seen? And it was like children and, like an underwater fight, which is, of course, where Jason had drowned as a boy. I tried to take everything that I could see that was a part of the story and do something with it. And then I thought, well, we all know about his mother, but where's Dad? What happened with Dad? And all I really wanted to do was introduce him at the end of the movie so that you go, holy shit, there's his father. Well, part of the reason I got the movie was I met with Frank Mancuso, and he said, look, we need to bring back Jason. We screwed up on Part 5. It wasn't Jason. The fans weren't happy. It ended with the potential that it could be Tommy Jarvis. So we got to just say, Jason is back. Bring him back from the dead. And I said, and he says, and whatever else you want to do. So I really had a very blessed opportunity to make a Friday that I wanted to see and that had a sense of humor, because I definitely, come out of that world of making people laugh as well as trying to scare them along the way. And so other than that, that's all he asked for. So, he loved the script, except he said, you know what, the ending, introducing Jason's father, I think as much as I would like to see you do it and shoot it, I think we wouldn't run it with that. I said, why? I think the fans would love it. After the last one that we ended on Tommy Jarvis, and, that confused people that we were going to change up things. What if those same people go, oh no, Part 7 is going to be Jason's dad? He said, I don't want anybody to think anything more than Jason Has Risen, which was the title I had on the script at that time, was Jason Has Risen. And that's it. I mean, he's back. He's unstoppable. I never, ever, ever, guys, hear me again, ever considered him a zombie, but that's sort of the way it's gone down is, well, you like, pre-zombie Jason or you like zombie Jason, But for me, it was like Frankenstein. Do we look at Frankenstein as a zombie? No. He was hit with a lightning bolt and comes back. But I guess he does fall into certain categories of zombie. And one of the things I purposely did is when the sheriff is shooting at him, he brings out a revolver and shoots him directly in the head, and he doesn't go down. So that theory to me was like, all right, well, there you go. He's not a zombie. So that whole thing of losing the dad I understood it. I was frustrated for years. People, asked about it and stuff. And of course, the other side of all this is, many years later, I get called by, these guys that want to do a fan film and have Jason's dad be the centerpiece and have CJ Graham, my Jason, actually play his father. And I said, that's great. And he goes, do you give us your permission? And I said, hey, go for it. I would love to see it. And they go, well, would you do a cameo at the beginning of the movie with CJ, and now you're the caretaker. And I said, well, I can be the caretaker's nephew or, illegitimate son or something. But yeah, I would love to act with CJ. And that kind of has become a ongoing thing. If you guys have seen Vengeance, and they're at the
top. We love them.
Yeah.
It was great.
Yeah.
After the lawsuit and all that, not having Jason in our lives for a long time, it was kind of like I told Mark, I said, even if this lawsuit does get over with, is it going to be the same? Is it going to be where we're going to have Victor Miller and Sean Cunningham still fighting? Are they going to come together? Are they going to say, screw the fans? Which we know a lot of Hollywood big shots like Victor Miller and all that, they always look at money more than what the fans like. And, like you said with part 5, they really did shit the bed with Roy being the killer and all that. Because we thought, whoa, hey, Jason's back. And so then finally, when part 6 came out, we finally got him back.
Yeah.
And we thank you a lot for that.
I mean, it could have been interesting to have a different Jason or somebody portraying him every time instead of being, but again, it didn't work because, the fans wanted Jason. They liked him.
Mm-hmm.
Well, it's just like Halloween 3.
Right. They wanted to try.
Everyone was asking where Michael was at that point, and they thought, well, hey, we blew him up after the end of part 2. What more? We want to try something else. And that's what Friday the 13th part 5 did, was they wanted to try something else, see if it worked. Well, you build up such a great character, and I'm sure Tom would agree with this. They built up Jason so well over 2, 3, 4, which 4 was originally supposed to be the ending, final chapter.
Yeah.
But then, we had 5, and then 6 finally comes back, and I don't know if I consider him a zombie like Tom was telling us. He's not really a zombie. It's just he's hard to die.
Yeah, he's just unstoppable, unkillable. Yeah. There's all kinds of stuff you can do, and continued. He went through a hell of a lot after mine too.
Oh, yeah.
And particularly, what Adam did with, Jason Goes to Hell. I mean, it's you kind of run out of. Well, do people want to see the exact same thing again? Yeah. Well, yes and no. I mean, because in a certain way, I thought it was the coolest thing ever when I heard, Jason Goes to Manhattan. And I thought, your imagination just goes nuts over how great would that be? Because now he's sort of like in the Michael Myers territory.
Yeah.
That, except, downtown New York, all those other things that you could put into it. But I guess when they went for it, they realized there was stuff that they just couldn't do cost-wise and stuff, because these things are done for very, very tight budgets.
Yep.
So it kind of, became, Jason on a yacht. And that is not bad. I mean, it's,
Yeah.
You're stuck. You can't go anywhere except underwater.
Yeah.
So that I thought was cool. But I think when you had that expectation factor of what was going to happen, and then when they got there, definitely had some, cool moments in there, no question. But it sort of was that, what do you expect, and how does the film deliver on that? So my feeling has always been, it's like, how do you, if you're going to do Alien again, do you go someplace else, as Ridley tried to do, which I didn't think worked as well, purely because it wasn't claustrophobic. There wasn't that sense that you got no way out here. Big vistas, gorgeous to look at, but it's like, run.
Yeah. You have nowhere to run on the ship. You can't leave the ship, and where's the alien? And a lot of sequels miss that, but I think with what you did with part 6 brought back what made Jason scary. I think we kind of lost it with part 4 a little bit, because I mean, you have Trish taking on Jason, and then you have Tommy as a little boy, making himself kind of look like Jason, and it was kind of like, okay, and then with part 5, like we said, it was more of a difference of, this isn't really Jason, it's someone else. And it was quite a bit of a shock, I'm sure, for the people in the theaters then, that, hey, it's not really Jason, it's someone else. And then you get told that Roy's son was the one that was killed earlier on in the film, and that he wanted to pay
giving
revenge.
spoilers away again.
Please. I mean, I was born in the 90s, and I remember watching this movie when I was 7.
I love how you guys see these things so young, and when we all were making these monsters of the 80s, we thought we were, I don't want to say we thought we were making dog shit, but we all wanted to be making really cool movies like the 70s, the movies we were watching as we decided we wanted to be filmmakers. And that was some lofty stuff, with Star Wars and obviously The Exorcist and Godfather, and I mean all these amazing films. And now, it's like we're doing Michael Myers and Jason and Freddy and Pinhead and Chucky and but all of us had to say, well, these are not Dracula and Frankenstein.
Yeah.
These things are going to play, because that's what would happen, is they would open and all of us, horror addicts would go that first weekend. And if it was all good, we'd tell all of our friends, and we'd go back again with them to watch them, experience.
Well, exactly. Word of mouth helped movies back then. It wasn't like you have today with all the commercials for that movie.
Yeah.
Halloween, when it first came out, did not do very good. But then 2 critics came out and said, this is a scary movie, go see it. And a lot of people say, well, didn't Friday the 13th start the horror thing? And it's like, in some ways it started the slasher genre, where you had to have more kills, you had to have more blood, you had to have more kind of nudity in a way. And you didn't really... Yeah.
I boned you guys on that. I apologize. But Darcy said, do you really need me to take off my top? And I said, do you not want to? And she said, I kind of don't. And I went, fine, the comedy will actually play better, because we're not going to be watching your boobs, bouncing up and down. A fan as I am, I thought, well, I also wrote comedy, and that I just started pulling it in both directions. And again, I was going to respect the woman. She didn't want to do it. I wasn't going to force her. But I took all kinds of, heat from that, from a lot of the fans. But then over the years, people go, well, you know what? I didn't mind letting my son, who's 4 years old, see Jason Lives, because there was no nudity in it. It's like, well, fuck up and down. I mean, killed like crazy, but that's okay, But don't want him to see breasts, which crazy, silly, certainly not.
That used to be my way of thinking. What would make a good, what makes a good horror movie? Blood, guts, nudity. But now I've taken, where it doesn't have to be nudity, because I've been watching horror movies all day, and, only bits and pieces have nudity in them, and some, others didn't. So, I mean, but every time I think of Friday the 13th, I always think that always has nudity in it. It seemed.
And
But-
part 5 had a lot. Part of
Yeah.
that due to the director came out of porno, so he was very much wanting to have that element be a very, very strong part of it. And it wasn't like I was going, well, I'm going to just go the opposite way. It's just me. And it's not even morally. It's just that I wanted to have the equal amount of guys getting it as women. I wanted people to confront him in ways that you think, oh, maybe they got it shot, and they don't, because this guy, it's no longer like hitting him and he goes down. It's like keep hitting him and he's not going anywhere. He's going to just keep on coming till he gets you. But the other big thing I tried to do, and a lot of people I don't know realize this, I've been talking about, of course, for years, but I wanted both of the leads, of which Jason now is a lead in this. It isn't just Friday the 13th and some guy in a mask killing people. It's Jason. He's got a history. We know about his mom. We know a lot about him. And he was happy down in that grave, done with the pain of having to avenge his mother.
Yep.
And as far as I was concerned, just like all the great monsters, Dracula, spoke of, to be dead, to be really dead would be glorious. Frankenstein said, love dead, hate living. Wolfman, no question, he did not like being the Wolfman. So there's that thing. So I thought, well, once Jason is down peaceful, everything's fine. And then this asshole kid who's got a vendetta, comes and doesn't mean to have this happen, but as, Satan or whoever decided to hit him with a lightning bolt, now he's back and unstoppable. And all he wants to do is get this kid. And he's pursuing him. And anybody gets in his way, anybody who drives down that road, and he's looking in the cabin, where is he? Where is he? And he has a little confrontation with the little girl. Again, his agenda is to get Tommy. And Tommy, of course, screwed up big time. And his agenda is, I got to stop this guy before he's killing. And of course, he's looked at as he's doing it. He's a nutcase. Mm-hmm. And at the end of the movie, both of them are down there with this big confrontation. Who's going to kill who? And Megan saves the day, because she's her heart in this, that she wants to save her boyfriend. So, there was more story, as basic as that is, that I wanted the movie to have. So it really wasn't just a slasher piece, but much more a film where hopefully you like the characters. Hopefully they make you laugh. The fact I was trying to be, irreverent about the whole genre and have character like the caretaker look right in the camera and say, you guys got some weird ideas of entertainment, like strange idea, obviously.
Yeah.
But that's the kind of thing that I like when somebody is like including me into the event. And
breaking that fourth wall.
Yeah. And any of the things, like, I've seen enough horror movies to know any guy in a mask is never friendly. I mean, those, again, it's for us, for us who love this stuff to enjoy it. And I'm telling you, it's so weird, man. 36 years later, having guys come up and go, look at this, look at that. And it's like, a scene from my movie, oh, wait, you got to see, and one of the other actors. And it's like, they're wearing this stuff until death, with the tattoos and things. And I just think it's amazing, because we in the 80s only wanted to do something like the 70s, and now we're the iconic monster makers that period. And obviously things are still going on with, the Friday movies that are now going to start up, and of course, Freddy again, I'm sure. Scream obviously came, which a little later, but still, it's all part of that whole world that fans still want to keep revisiting.
Well, that's like my dad, being 65 years old. He asked me when the Halloween Ends came out, he's like, why do you still want to watch this? And I said, because, Dad, it doesn't matter how many times they die. It's always going to be a part of. I remember being 6 years old in 1998 when Halloween H2O came out. And AMC, of course, had to have it on their horror-thon thing. Mm-hmm. Well, they played the original one, and the first time I glimpsed that mask, I ran into my bedroom and started crying. Well, my brother, being my brother, and he can deny this all he wants, later picked me up out of my bed, sat me down, and sat on me so that I would watch this movie. And it took me so many years to finally be able to like sit down and watch the movie because it was that scare factor.
Yeah.
Even with Jason. I mean, these kids nowadays don't understand, like, back in the 70s, you had to one up what the original horror movie, or what they considered horror movies. I mean, you had Godzilla, if you can consider that a horror movie.
Yeah.
It was scary for its time. You had, like you said, Dracula, the Wolfman, Frankenstein, and then of course you had the British Hammer films, and then finally in the 70s we get Black Christmas, we get Texas Chainsaw, then we finally get what they supposedly considered the first ever horror movie in their eyes, I guess, Halloween, and then of course beginning in the 80s you have a new one that's pretty much more badass than Michael. I mean, Jason doesn't shy away from finding new ways to kill people. And then shortly after that, you had Freddy. And then, like you said later on, you had Ghostface, which it's all coming back full circle. I mean, granted, we didn't get the 40th anniversary of Friday the 13th like we were hoping, but, stuff happens.
Yeah, we're getting the series this year.
Is it going to happen this year on
Yeah.
Peacock finally?
Yeah.
I know they keep doing the teaser trailers for it.
Yeah, it's fall of this year. They already announced that. They just haven't said when exactly in the fall.
It was a huge. I think you guys know that I have written 2 scripts because for 32 years, before I did that, I was being, so Bud, why don't you do another one? We would love to see you do another one. I know you wanted to do, Jason meets Cheech and Chong and some of these other, funny ideas and stuff. And I said, if I could come up with something that I thought was clever and that it would work, I would go for it. And just as it looked like the settlement was going to finally occur and that, Mr. Miller was going to get the rights to the title and to young Jason and the mom and I guess Crystal Lake, and Sean was going to get the masked Jason and all that. Suddenly I said, okay, I need to come up with something. And like 3 different ideas all kind of came together for one thing. And I've done, well, if you see the box set that Scream Factory did, on the series, which is excellent, you guys, if you haven't, got that, that's the definitive one where they talked to us about how we wanted the movie to look, that maybe it got lost along the way, which it did in terms of the colors and stuff, and all the extras that you could possibly want. But on there's a long interview with me, and I'm giving away a lot of information about this movie, Jason Never Dies, that I had written and wanted to put out there, but no one in this town, meaning Los Angeles, would look at a script that was still up in the air about who had the rights.
Yeah.
So I did a number of podcasts and interviews and things about it, and kind of put it out there that I wanted to, for the first time, it's been talked about on and off over the years about doing a winter setting for, Camp Crystal. But it never happened. And I don't know what the other ideas were, but I thought I want to do a number of things that all could collide. So you would have sort of a dark sense of humor about it, but it's far more intense than my Friday. I'm going to up, the stakes with the kills, and also give it an innocence that the victims, potential victims, have that mine didn't have, which was, as you know, through mine, it was always like, what if it's Jason out there? Oh, let's play this game where these are the cabins and this is. So I was making a joke out of the whole thing. This one is a group that comes into that area having no idea about a Jason Voorhees. I know nothing there. Yep. I thought, okay, first off, it's got to be in snow, but I'm talking about John Carpenter's The Thing snow.
Yeah.
It's socked in, you ain't going no place. And if you try to go someplace, just like The Shining, your footprints are very easy to follow. Blood in the snow, all those things that were going to be kind of cool. But I wanted to come up with, sort of interesting things of how he kills and what he does and how he can actually use snow for jump scare things that, you know, nobody's done before. And then I thought, well, what if this is like a freak storm that literally happened, you know, in the week before Thanksgiving? And this was actually a group of high school girls who are badass girls, Catholic high school girls who are drug dealers. One's a prostitute, you know, one's, you know, one like is, I won't go into too much, you know, them,
Yeah.
but they are all sinners. And this Irish nun has them to go on a spiritual retreat, and they're supposed to go to this other, you know, Catholic spiritual retreat camp that's, you know, was closed down because of the snow. So they end up at Camp Christian Lake, which is directly across from Camp Crystal Lake. And the lake is frozen solid, you know? So I'm going to give you a chase across Crystal Lake for the first time, and also justify how many times we see in horror movies the victim running and they keep falling down, you know, and it's like, why are you falling down? But here, if your feet's going like this and Jason's just coming, it's like, it makes a lot of sense why, you know, you can't, you know, get any traction. And literally set it in 1999. So it's 13 years since I put him down there, you know. So I love the idea of like this event happens 13 years later. It's also happening at the turn of the millennium. So you guys are probably too young, but we were all paranoid like crazy in 1999 that
you called me young.
Yeah.
Wow. And 7 years old.
It has nothing to do with the movie, but it's something that the girls talk about. You know, are your parents all freaked out over this fucking thing? It's like, yeah, I don't know what the problem is, but it adds another air of this is a weird time to have this happen. So it's over Thanksgiving weekend that they're doing it. So guess who's coming to dinner? So, and it all has that kind of, as I said, dark comic aspect to it, but Jason's the only male. It's all women, you know, they all are going to give him a hell of a time, you know, to try to kill them, and what, you know, and how they try to get back. And he's got, once again, a whole different kind of agenda that actually connects to my Jason Lives. There was something I set up in Jason Lives that if I ever got a chance to do a sequel, this would be the way I'd want to go with it. That for the fans, you know, it's like, oh, okay, now I know what that was, that moment that occurred. So I really wanted more than anything else to make a movie that if, as I was writing it, I was sitting in a theater watching it on screen going, all right, is this going to get people to go, yes, you know, and that to me is what these things need to be. They need to be like a ride. They need to be something that you got to go see this, man. This is cool. This is cool. And if you never saw, you know, one before, it would still be a great horror movie for a generation that maybe only saw them on tape, or maybe they were overhyped about it. And I was like, yeah, it was okay. You know, who knows? But I wanted it to kind of work, you know, for this time. And as I said, I can't get anybody to look at it. And then finally, when this thing's solved, you know, it's like, no, Sean's already doing one. I don't know what he's doing, but I'm going to have to wait if there's any chance. Of course, you know, I won't die until I make this thing. And then I shifted gears, got involved with a guy named James Sweet, who directed Jason Rising, which is a fan film, you know, Jason movie, which I thought, I've seen some really good ones, and I put this in the category, like Never Hike Alone and Never Hike in the Snow. And by the way, Vincent, you know, when I announced I was doing this, he goes, I'm already doing a fan film with snow and stuff. And I go, oh, well, you're going to get there first, pal, because mine is very expensive, you know, because I want to do the genuine thing. And he was doing it kind of like on weekends. And I thought he did a great job with it. But of course, snow doesn't hold. Yeah. So, you know, you come back the next weekend and, you know, what was like maybe this tall is now gone. And so we had to add optical things and, you know, so we could still do that. And he's working on a feature now of kind of putting all that together. But I decided that, you know what, if basically Victor is going to have the rights for his mother, young Jason, and the camp, what could I do with that? And James when I talked to him to congratulate him on the movie, he said, I've always wanted to do something like where we see the birth of Jason. And I went, yeah, that would be cool. And then that night, my head exploded with all these ideas about that whole backstory, where Pamela came from, how Jason was born, what the situation was with the husband, Elias. And what a lot of people don't think about is that Jason was born in 1946, which is just as the war ended. This country was so fucked up after World War II. The women had jobs, they were doing great. Now it's like, hey, back to the kitchen. You're going to be my baby machine. I'm taking my job back. Pamela's out there with a kid who looks pretty damn freaky, and people are either making fun or rejecting him. And she's already a bit, of a head case.
Yeah.
And it doesn't take long for us to have a mother and son, dynamic there of going out there and trying to just survive, where people didn't want to, hire a young woman who had a baby, much less, a deformed one. And the kind of people that they encounter on their way or the next 10 years before they actually reach, Crystal Lake. So I am in love with this piece. Behind me, all these cards represent scenes from that. And it's called the Diary of Pamela Voorhees. Right out of my head, because I've been so devastated since the announcement of Crystal Lake that I'm going, okay, now what? So that I'm sitting on too with James and the other. So I have 2 pieces, and basically, having had a texting back and forth with the showrunner from Hannibal that's doing it, he said, I don't want to read your thing. I got my own ideas how I want to do this, and we're going to do all the movies all the way through, all the way to outer space and stuff. And this is nothing that hasn't been announced already.
Yeah.
So I'm going, all right, what do I do with this? I don't know. I really think it would please the fan base, and maybe he will with what he's doing, what he's planned, because he's done a hell of a good job on Hannibal, and he's certainly, knows the genre, and is probably going to try to do the same as I was doing, is really make it, deeper in Pamela's background as well. But I don't know if it's going to be the same thing. But I just hate to give up after 3 years of working on these,
I'd like to see that. Yeah, I think that would be cool. Both of those movies would be.
Go ahead, Mark, and then Peter also said, "What up, gentlemen?"
Without flooding the market with Friday the 13th movies, there's only been so many that went in a row that, actually stayed, 4, 5, and 6, the story stayed sort of the same. You had Tommy in there, and then after that, everything changed. Yeah. I think that it would be perfect to throw your movie in there in the beginning, because I know that I remember one interview with Victor Miller. He said that he wanted to go back and do stuff with Pamela to make it where her backstory better and stuff like that. Which, okay, if you want to do it that way. But I read the comic books for Pamela's Tales.
Yeah,
I love those ones. Those 2 were really good, and it would be great if somebody could do that. Give us a backstory to some degree without making it where Jason is possessed by the devil or whatever. I mean,
the Necronomicon, like he was in.
But I love the idea that in Vengeance that they came up to you and they asked you permission and stuff, and how it all came about. Because we were talking with Peter, we talked with Jason Brooks,
Darcy
DeMoss. We talked with, and they all love you, of course. And it was like, you got him to do this, and then you being in the movies too even made it even better. Because some people look at this and say, okay, who is Elias? And most people until what it was like what Jason Goes to Hell when they first actually announced who Jason's father is, and it was like, well, why didn't they announce him sooner into it? And well, that would give a good reason because they didn't allow you to.
Yeah, well, that made sense to me why he was saying that in this one. Although I don't think, I mean, the way I planned it, that wasn't going to be the last shot of the movie. The last shot was still what you guys saw with his, his in close on his face and his eye just staring at you, and it's like he's down there, but he ain't dead. And maybe Dad will be instrumental in bringing him up. We don't know, but to immediately jump to the notion that people were going to go, oh no, the next movie is going to be about him and not Jason. I didn't really think that was going to be the case. And, but I'm not the boss. That's his franchise and things. And he really wanted me to do a sequel. And I said, if I could, I would. I'd put everything I can think of into that movie. If I could come up with something else, I would. And then he immediately said, would you do one with Jason and Freddy? And I went, whoa, okay. How are you going to do that? New Line has Freddy. You guys have to. He goes, I'm working on it with New Line. We're in conversations about it. And I said, yeah, that would be challenging because Freddy exists in a different realm than Jason, as far as I'm concerned. And, Freddy's kind of killable in a certain way, but again, it's the dream world and things. And Jason is now kind of unstoppable. So how all that would go down, boy, I'd have to give that some thought. Well, I didn't really get much time because he came back in less than a week and they went, nope, we're not giving up Freddy. We're not merging these guys. And of course, it was many, many years, later before that happened. But for all that time, I just didn't have anything that I thought was cool enough for the fan base. And for me as a horror person going, all right, if I'm going to go back again, lay down my money, I want to see something that I know kind of what I'm going to get. But if you can surprise me and if you can twist it some way that you go, okay, that's great. I didn't expect that. And that's the secret, I think, to the sequels. Don't do exactly the same movie again because you walk out going, we've seen this. If you go off and do something else, like, unfortunately, with Halloween, the perception on Halloween was, even though Tommy Wallace did a great job on that movie, people we don't want this. We can see this any day. We want our boy. So that's the other side of it. If you're too different, with it, or you go take someplace that's like, come on, that's not great. But for every Friday that had a kind of a weird premise about it, there'll be, freezing the girl's face in the,
Part 10. Yep.
One of the best kills they've ever done.
I thought so too. Now, thinking of Jason versus Freddy, you said that that realm, what they did with that movie wasn't. I liked it. I just didn't care for the ending a whole lot.
Yeah.
But if you could do one like, say, Jason versus Michael Myers.
Mm-hmm.
Now,
well,
that one's more doable. That one's more doable.
Yeah.
But that would be like asking the question on who's stronger.
Mm-hmm.
There's always debates on that one, or Chucky versus or would we say Leprechaun, stuff like that. Who's stronger on who. I always wondered if there was ever talks about Michael and versus Jason.
Oh, definitely in the 90s.
And it's that same sort of greed thing. Who's going to go along with it? And of course, in this day and age, they share. Universal and Blumhouse, share these things together. And so it's sort of like, well, who's going to do this part of the world for the rights, and who's going to do the California? I'm sorry, the United States, and now streaming. I mean, there's so many markets these guys, have to make money off of. It's kind of like who gets the biggest piece of the pie. Yeah. But there is, I don't know if any of you guys seen it. If you're fans of the fan films,
Roseblood.
There's, he did a great job. There is.
Peter did an awesome job at that.
He did.
And sorry to cut you off, but Peter did say, "What is up, gentlemen? Tom, I love you, buddy. Miss ya." And then he said, "Please tell Tom hello." He probably didn't hear you, I think. Thanks. We love you, Peter. Sorry about that. I was talking too much. I was trying to get you in there, Peter, but that's on me.
Well, I'm talking too much. But what I was trying to explain is the Jason versus Michael Myers. A couple, because I think it was 2 directors that did this, but they did a Jason and Michael Myers fight, like
I think I've seen that one.
barn and outside and stuff.
Yeah.
It is kick-ass, man. I mean, these guys, they did some stunts, and it was like a real smackdown affair that I thought, I don't how they're going to resolve this. I don't know, because they made them really like the best of the best, in terms of what they did to each other. So, I'd reach out to those guys and say, hey, let's come up with a story to make that all work, that sequence, because it was a great thing that they already did. But they're going to probably save something like that for if Crystal Lake goes 2-3 seasons, and that's a question of are the fans going to love what they're doing with it? Is there going to be a new audience that comes? When James and I started on the Diary of Pamela Franklin. Pamela Franklin.
It happens.
It happens. Mine's the first thing to go, guys.
Yeah.
Goes. I had not seen Bates Motel, and so I thought, that's a mother and son thing. I got to see that. And even though the circumstances were completely different from what we were doing, I went, how do they make that story go all that time and have people be really huge fans of it? And when I sat down and watched it, of course, I went and got the DVD or Blu-ray box with, all the bells and whistles. I was loving it, going, this is amazing, because these actors were so terrific. And
I loved it. It worked
great.
Yeah, it was a great series altogether.
So just to do that,
Yeah. Have you had a chance to watch the Chucky series?
I only saw the first episode, and then every time I think about it and I write it down, I get buried in all these papers on my desk here, and it gets lost.
I'm telling you, it's worth watching. It's really good.
Yeah.
Second season is
as you, Tom.
Towards the end of the first season, it starts to really pick up. The first few episodes are a little boring, but the second season, man, they go full force.
Yeah. Well, what's going to happen, boys. Like, maybe it'll be 5 years from now, maybe sooner, who knows. But Megan and Chucky are going to be on that screen together some way, somehow. They're going to put the 2 evil dolls.
Yeah. Megan's supposed to be really good too, from what I've read. I have not got to see it yet. I probably will see it, but I've been told that it's really good.
I think
we are getting an unrated version too.
Mm-hmm.
At least that's what I heard. I don't know why they went with the PG-13 thing. I mean, to me, well, yeah. But, the one thing I got to tell you is, and, Crystal Lake, the series is probably going to be really good. Who knows? But to tell someone that, like you in the, how you helped out the franchise that, hey, I got my own ideas. We don't really need you. That'd be like telling Blumhouse and all them telling John Carpenter, we know you created this good thing and you kind of revived it and you want to revive it, but we don't need you. I mean, it's like, to me, it's like, why wouldn't you want to sit down with this guy and ask him questions? Like, if I'm the people that are doing Crystal Lake and I know you're reaching out to me, I'm asking you everything. But that's just me because I'm a fan. I want to know. I want to pick your brain. Just like if I was doing a Halloween, I want to pick John Carpenter's brain. I want to be like, okay, what would you do differently than what they did with the trilogy? Because let's be honest, at the end of the day, if John Carpenter hated the films, oh well, it all, like he said, as long as he gets the check and the money clears, he's fine with it.
Well, Stephen King hated what Kubrick did to The Shining, and that didn't stop any of us from seeing it and seeing it again and again.
Yeah.
I love Stephen King's work. I love that I was blessed to get a Stephen King movie, in my group of films. And it's like, who knows more about the genre than Stephen King, but he had a very particular way that he saw this going. And, Stanley has his way of making movies. And as King said, I can't fault him as a filmmaker. It's just not my shining. And that bothered him.
So I wonder, since everything's all settled down, if Stephen King's going to actually write the book that he was talking about, Boy Named Jason.
Oh yeah, I Jason, I think he's calling it.
Okay, no, I thought it was Boy Named Jason or something like that. But it looks really interesting. I would definitely read that one.
It is such a cool idea. I like all of Stephen King's work. It's really hard to translate it, into a film. Certain ones translate really well, but a lot of them, part of it is exactly what he's talking about with I, Jason. We're going to be inside Jason's head, hearing his thoughts, what's going on in there, which be fascinating. But do we want to see a movie where we're hearing his thoughts? I don't think so.
No.
Yeah, no.
No, I agree the book, no problem. But watching the movie, I would have a problem with that part.
Yeah.
But now, besides Friday the 13th, is there any other movie any other horror icon that you would like to write for?
Like another type of a horror franchise or whatever?
Yeah. Or even make your own franchise up,
I actually have a couple of things that I have been sort of working on and off over the years. And the problem with this business, guys, just so you know, for one, I'm older. So I'm like, hey, dude, you had your day, sit down, get on a golf cart, swat some balls around, let the young guys do the job now. Thank you so much. Then there's guys like me and a number of us, like, Adam, Marcus, and many of them are like, no, we don't want to be out swatting balls. We love this. We go to these things. I mean, I myself am very blessed to have a girlfriend who loves this shit more than me, knows more than me and most filmmakers out there, because she spent the 80s as a kid sitting in front of the TV, watching them over and over. She can do lines, from every movie. And when there's a new one, like with Megan, bang, we were there at 6:30 on Thursday, and it was not even opening till Friday because they have their, advanced screenings to see that. That's the way it's been for the last 6 years for me. Having somebody who's the ultra fan, who then after sees the movie goes online, watches every podcast, every spoiler thing, all that stuff, because she's already seen the movie and she wants to be a walking encyclopedia. And for the record, the first Friday she saw was part 5, and she thought it was great. She saw it very young, in the theater, and of course that was her introduction, to it. So she still is loyal to it. But then when 6 came along, she said, well, yeah, now of course, and now knowing you, there's no question that that's my favorite. But it's sometimes, when you see something, if it's your first time seeing something, you never know. I mean, they're the hardcore fans there's people that love the reboot of Friday better than anything else because they saw it in the theater. They saw it with a bunch of their friends. Everybody was stoned. They had a hell of a great time. And as far as they're concerned, that was an event, that was great. So it was wrong, it
was, that one was good, but it's not even on the top of my list on that.
No. And the same thing with a lot of the remakes. I mean, look at a lot of the remakes that didn't work. I mean, some people love Rob Zombie, what he did with Halloween. Granted, I still think they shouldn't have done it. You just killed Jamie Lee Curtis. Why don't you bring in the son or bring back the daughter? There's so many ways they could do this stuff. And like we were saying, in the 90s, not only were we originally supposed to get a Jason versus Freddy, we were all supposed to get Michael versus Jason. And with the way Miramax and all that was, or Dimension at the time, was the Weinsteins didn't want it for whatever reason.
Yeah.
And it probably came down just to, like everything else, money.
It has to be that way, unfortunately, guys, because making movies, and this is also why streaming is doing so well, is COVID caused everybody to go indoors for that time, and they started basically giving stuff away. And I mean, in that, you spend a certain amount for that subscription, and you can get all these things, and you don't have to go out. And a lot of people have become lazy in that regard.
Oh, definitely. They don't want to go to the theaters anymore. And just like what happened to home or the mom and pop video stores, I always tell people that you see them all the time on Facebook or something. They're like, oh, I'm so tired of how much a movie costs in the theater. I'd rather watch it on streaming. Okay, that's fine and dandy. But for people like us that want to have that experience in the theater, blows anything that streaming does away.
Yeah.
And I hate to say it, but I think COVID is really destroying the movie theater business. I mean, it already has.
Yeah, it has. And now they're trying to figure out, okay, if all those people went and saw Top Gun, and all these people went and saw, Scream, and then some saw it, we could have made more if we didn't do it on that, and Disney, they ended up firing their chief who was behind, putting the, what's the Disney movie they had, the one that was the Chinese
Mulan.
Yeah. Mulan, they now regretted that they did it that way because they would have had a much bigger movie as a.
Well, that's just like Warner Brothers now, with bringing back Henry Cavill only to say, no, we don't need you anymore. And, it's sad because he left The Witcher because they didn't want to follow the source material anymore.
Yeah.
And it's just like.
Yeah, he's already got a new show anyways.
Oh, does he now?
Yeah.
What is it?
I don't know what it is, but he's got a new one.
All I know is this year is going to be. I looked at all the movies coming out this year, and it's just like, oh my God, I am not going to have a month off because you have Fast 10, which I'm surprised they're still making them. And then you have, God, what else do we have? Another Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtles movie, which I never knew was coming back.
I'm not even going to watch that one.
Scream, which damn well I'm going to see that one.
You have
Evil Dead.
You have
Evil Dead's making another one.
And you have, you can go list a lot, but they also have in October, I believe it's on the 13th, they have it blocked off for a special movie. And it actually has right there a future Halloween movie. Future Friday movie, it says.
I was about to say they
Not Halloween, I'm sorry.
All the rumors for a new Halloween movie that supposedly was supposed to come out in 5 years. They've already said that ain't happening.
Yeah,
which I think after the trilogy, you kind of gotta let Michael rest a little bit so that it gets out of, because I loved the first two in the trilogy, and I even told Mark and I told my wife, who I'm glad that she's still married to me after I brought her to Halloween Ends, but I said that Halloween Ends was going to be kind of like what happened with the original Star Wars. You had the second Star Wars movie, which was the best, and then you had the Return of the Jedi with 3. And it kind of didn't. It was still a good movie, but it really didn't touch what the second one did. And with Kills, after Kills, it's just like, well, what else are you going to be able to do? And then, of course, they make him into a hobo, and it's just like, oh, my God. How John Carpenter can sit there and be like, oh, yeah, I was happy with it. I loved it. It's just like, no. I'm sure if they would have asked you to do Halloween Ends, you could have made it better.
Well, I'm not going to say yes, but I certainly would have made it very different because I felt there was a lot of things that sort of changed the rules that were established along the way. I kept thinking, if Jamie could kill him that easy at the end of all this, what happened? What happened? Evil dies tonight, because that was telling us.
Oh my God, that's the worst scene that they ever put in a movie. Evil dies tonight.
Like I said, David Gordon Green for what they gave us in Halloween Kills, if you took a little bit out of there, and even if you brought Corey in a lot sooner in the franchise before Ends, I think the Corey character would have been more well received. That being said, they were trying to do like and I said this to you, remember that, Mark? I said, you watch, this will kind of be like Season of the Witch in a way. They're going to try and they never did it before, but they're going to try and have someone else be Michael. And what happened? It didn't work. Yeah. Which everyone was saying. There's people on message boards before even Halloween Ends was even in pre-production saying, you watch, they'll try and pull a Friday the 13th in this. And they really did. They took Michael out of the equation, and now with whatever Jamie Lee Curtis and them had at the end of that movie, where it's like Michael's now dead, but the shape can go into anyone. Are they bringing back Michael, or is it just going to be Halloween where every other movie is going to have a new person as a shape?
Yeah.
And that's the scary thing about what happened. Now, granted, Blumhouse don't have the rights to that anymore, so whoever gets it next can just be like, you know what? That trilogy was a big pile of shit. Forget about that. We're going back to the basics. I mean, that's like, I just... To me, I don't know how Carpenter could have signed off on Ends. I mean, must have been a 6-pack or something involved, like how he got the brother and sister angle out of that shit.
Yeah.
Well, but yeah, I don't know how they killed him that easy either.
As I told so many times people when they go, well, how do you explain that Jason, pops up in the water at the end of the first one, and then the next one, you see she's back, the final girl, our wonderful Tina.
Adrian King.
I don't know why I said going Tina. Oh, it's same thing, brain fart. So now he's like grown up, and that sort of justifies, he saw his mother decapitated, so he's there, but she looks like it's been a day, since they're back, but I guess there was a certain amount of time, but certainly not enough to take a 6-year-old, 7-year-old, 10-year-old boy, whatever he was supposed to be in that one, and grow him up. And the answer is very simple. The Paramount went, okay, we can't have this be about a killer boy. It's got to be a Michael Myers. So we got to just, drop that idea. If you want to think it was a dream, whatever you wanted to do with it, just we're moving on. And there was no rhyme or reason about it other than that arbitrary decision. And people tried so hard to put some logic to it.
And that would have explained how he stayed out for so long, as if they would have put Elias into it earlier into the series.
Mm-hmm.
Well, that would have said, okay, he's the one that raised Michael the rest of the way up, and then
Jason.
Jason. Why do I keep saying Michael? I don't know. But yeah, it would have made it so much better.
You're gonna get so much hate mail for that, Mark.
Yes. That's okay.
Yeah, I always I try very hard to make things. There's two ways I look at these movies. There's movie logic, and then there's real logic. Mm-hmm. And there's times where you go, oh, wait a minute. They can't do that and walk away from that, or riddle somebody up with bullets, yet they still get up and kill the villain at the end and stuff. And you're going, okay, that's movie logic. You got to just buy that. And then there's those things that come along, and you go, oh, wait a minute, she was on this side of town, and now how the hell did she get there that fast? I mean, that and that'll bother the shit out of certain people. I'll tell you, when Halloween ended. All I did during the rolling of the credits go, okay, what's going to be the twist that's going to be allowed to bring him back? Yeah, we saw him get all, crunched up like ground up meat.
Yeah.
But how do we know that was Michael? They had him.
Yeah, they'll find some way to do it.
What if that was the body of that? Tommy. The asshole kid. I don't know, he wasn't a kid anymore, but. What's his name? Anthony Michael Hall. What if that's what was getting ground up, and somehow we see a scene where there was just enough time to do a switcheroo with somebody who was, on the side of Michael, Of course, he's going to be, I don't know how old at this point, I'm still swinging at 72. So I'm looking at, so many of these other, I mean, Francis Ford Coppola is making a movie. He's at 82 right now. So I ain't going nowhere until I'm 100. I already have the crypt, already got the plans for the post after my life. So as far as I'm concerned, I'm going to keep coming up with stuff. And I think the same way, why can't that Michael just have that, get back to that idea that he's got so much rage in there, and they got to go to some retirement home someplace where, there she is, our girl, and they're going for advice, is this possible? Was there any time when there was where that might not have been, Michael, Jamie, and they'll come up with something, that we'll buy and at least go once.
Yeah.
And say, all right, what the fuck are they going to do? We got to find out. We can be mad about it, but by that point, they'll have our $50, which will probably be what a movie will cost by that point.
Probably.
Because here in LA, man, they're getting $30.
Oh yeah, I bet. It's Alyssa. How much was it to go see Halloween Ends in theaters? Probably $20.
It was
It was like $20.
Oh, you found something.
Yeah.
Yeah, I paid $24 for me and my daughter.
Yeah.
Well, like the first movie that I ever went to see that came out at midnight was 2018's Halloween. I told my wife, I'm like, I know we got work in the morning, but I said, I will call off. I need to do this. I needed to see it. And, everyone can say, oh, well, the next day, you could have went the next day and you would have gotten the same thing. It's like, no, you want to be there that night to see. I mean, I missed out on watching a lot of the great horror movies of the 70s. And it's just like horror movies now, the fan films are pretty much better than what we're getting unless you look at Megan, which Megan being a new thing, just based off of kind of the Chucky thing and all that, or even the Leprechaun and all that. That's what we're missing, is that, we can have new stuff, but at the same time, and honestly, if the next Halloween comes back and they make Michael in a nursing home, you might as well end the movie then. I think what they should do is just bring him back to where you don't have to give him an age anymore. Just make him be like what Loomis always told us in the first one. Purely, simply evil. Don't give him a motive like they did later in Halloween 2, which they never needed to. Because it's like, okay, why is he going after Laurie? Because she was the only one to escape.
Yeah.
He killed Annie. He killed, Linda. Killed Bob. And finally, this one woman who keeps dropping the knife. And he's choking her and all that. And she got away.
Yeah.
Loomis came to the rescue. He got shot 6 times. And that is one of the scariest things. Like, I remember being 6 watching that, and then Loomis looks and he's gone.
Yeah.
To me, like you were saying, there's movie logic and then there's real life, yeah. But at the same time, Donald Pleasance, they could have ruined that.
Yeah.
Because Donald Pleasance is like, okay, I can do one take where, oh, I know he's gone, or, oh my God, he's gone. Oh my God, he's gone. 1 out. Thank God. Yeah. I mean, there's even something on YouTube, and I don't know if you've seen this yet, Tom, but I don't know where they unearthed this or how they unearthed this, but they actually show that scene where Michael's on the ground, but he gets up and runs away. Just dead bolts away.
Really?
Yeah. And if you haven't seen that, I'll send it to you.
Please. I've never even heard that they did that and then just said, "Oh, no,
Yeah, send that to me too." I know we talked about that, but I haven't looked it up.
They unearthed it, and John Carpenter. People are asking John Carpenter to put it in, like as an alternate ending or something, because and there's no sound or anything to it. You just see him get up and he's gone. Which to me, it's like, I don't know if it would have worked for Michael because he's walking the whole time. Granted, when he's getting towards Laurie, you see him kind of pick up the pace a little bit, but he's not running towards her.
Yeah.
And that's what adds the suspense of he's walking. He's
Well,
gonna get you. He doesn't need to hurry up. He's gonna
I-
honor that kill.
I guess, Stephen, the thing I would want to know, though, if we see him down there and then suddenly he gets up and runs, is that something where they were having the cameras just kept rolling and
Probably.
the castle, had like, diarrhea or something, and it's like, how long are you gonna hold on this shot? It's like, you can get up when you want, and he gets up and he runs, to the porta potty,
Yeah.
and that's what they got. I can't imagine.
Well, that's what a lot of
That's
it
scary.
came out on Twitter. It came out on Twitter once whoever found this, and I don't know if it was Carpenter or someone unearthed it, whoever unearthed it. It was weird. Granted, like I said, no sound to it, so it was probably like you said, camera was still rolling. But yeah, I will get that to you guys because you have to see it.
And you're absolutely sure it wasn't some sort of like Photoshop fan created this off of the footage and then recreated somebody in the outfit and made it appear that
If they did, they made it look really good because it looks
didn't send it
just
to me.
like the movie itself.
I'd be I want to see that.
Yeah, I'll send it to you guys after the episode.
I love when people do these, these face things that they can do now, and you're going, holy shit, that's scary, how good they can be. And I was actually, I did not want to like Avatar, the new one, Way of Water, because I was so I was blown away by the first one in terms of technically, but I didn't give a shit about anybody in there, and I was just watching the technical. So I kind of went as like a cinema person and going, the man spent 3 years on this. He's got other ones that he's basically rolling.
Now he's gonna do.
And I sat there going, I want to hate it. I can't. They did so much great work now that you facially felt that it was so much more human than it was this, alien thing. And they really played up sequences that were just very fun. The learning how to work in the water with those creatures and things that really weren't even story. They were just, little like episodes within it. And yet it still was grounded in family and caring and brothers and loss of a brother, so many elements that were just true as Titanic was to a classic love story, and human story. So no wonder it's making all this money because people are going, it actually, delivers what I like a movie to deliver. So I don't know how many people hated it or for what reasons, but I have to say, I sat there going, and I saw it in 4D, by the way. So it was 3D, IMAX, and the seats were going. And when things flew, you were in this.
Oh, that'd be cool.
Seat so many times because they're so rough on those 4D movies now. You literally, then they get into fights and stuff. You're getting knocked all over the place. So it was a ride, more than a movie.
I know that you have a special place in your heart for Friday the 13th, but for the one that you did. But if you weren't able to have done that movie, what other movie would you have done? Would you have taken a shot at Halloween? Would you have taken a shot at like Friday the 13th or Texas Chainsaw or Chucky or God, what's another horror movie in the 80s? My Bloody Valentine. I'll just throw that one out.
Okay. I took on something that everybody that I knew said, oh, so you're willing to have your career die right now by doing this? And I said, as crazy as I am, and as much as I love what the original was, and still to this day will stand forever and say, this is the most intense horror movie I ever experienced, The Exorcist. And I was the first week when it came out, I saw people passing out, grown men fainting during the bone marrow section, saw people throwing up, saw ambulances out front, saw William Peter Blatty and William Friedkin passing out coffee, the lines, the event, people going back to church. It was an event that I spent so much of my life studying that movie. What did they do? How did that work and stuff? I got hired by Warner Brothers and Morgan Creek to do the prequel to The Exorcist. I was on it 2 years. And it was like, there was some promise in the script, but there was a lot that was wrong. And they spent like $1 million on these 2 top writers to do it, but it just didn't work. And I said, if we can get the right writer and do this thing in a way that I'm not going to try to top The Exorcist, but I can certainly top the second one and hopefully get close to the third one that William Peter Blatty did, because I thought there were some incredible scary sequences. And
that was a good one too.
I'm not going to say yes until I meet with William Peter Blatty. And, James Robinson, who runs Morgan Creek, says, no way. He hates we're doing this. He hates the fact that we made him do an exorcist scene in part 3 because he wrote it and they shot it with no exorcist. There was no Nicole Williamson at the end of that. And some secretary said, why is there no exorcism in an exorcist movie? So they went back to Blatty and said, you're going to have to do this. And he says, fuck no, and it's like, well, we'll get somebody else. And turned into a big rigmarole. And so he shot that. So he hates Warner Brothers and all that. And, he's not going to meet with you. And I insisted. And somehow he said, okay, the meeting may be 5 minutes. Well, it turned out to be lunch and an entire afternoon. We got along incredibly. Going up to his house, he said, my house is in the shape of a cross. I said, what? He goes, yeah, if you have a helicopter overhead, you will see this in the shape of a cross. And I said, so do you believe in all this? He goes, I believe in a lot of stuff. And I cover the bases, making sure nothing's going to happen to me or my family. But, we got along great. Everything I told him I wanted to do with the movie, no CGI effects. We're going to go back to the basics. It's going to be about religion, and it's going to be about Father Merrin's first encounter with the demon, in Africa, in a church, like a satanic church that a real church was built on top of. But when they were excavating, they found this demonic church. All of these things, I thought, you know what? I can go in the style of like The Godfather, or one of the movies that I look at as a landmark of cinema and mood and feeling and period, and make this really scary and really show how this could have been the end of Father Merrin and things. So before I left his house, he gave me a tape of an actual exorcism in Italy that actually had the voice that you hear in the movie, that and it was a little girl in this thing. And he said, look, I'm going to make you a promise, Tom. If you do this movie, and if I see it and I hate it, I'm going to go on every talk show and tell them what a piece of shit the movie is and how horrible you are. And I said, my hand to God, Peter, and we're talking about the same God here, the Catholic God. I will not make this movie if I don't think I can come somewhat close to yours. And that's it. And 2 years later, after we'd scouted locations, we, found the little boy that was going to actually be this, deformed child that once the demon goes into him, he's beautiful and he's as smart as Hannibal Lecter and clever and, all this stuff. The script that came in, it was like my dinner with Satan. It was all this talk and shit. And I said, this is not it. And so they said, what, you're walking away from this movie? And I said, yeah, I promised William Peter Blatty I would not do it. And the interesting thing is, I had to sign a gag order saying that anything in here that I contributed, I don't get any money for. Then the movie has to make X amount, in America before I get any kind of real payday on the thing and stuff. They ended up hiring John Frankenheimer to direct it, who was my director when I did Prophecy. I was the mutated bear because of my mime training in the movie Prophecy. So I, obviously knew what it was like to work with Frankenheimer, knew how strong a personality he was. He was on the movie for a year. He went into a hospital for a normal procedure and died. Now it was like, now they needed a director again. Somehow the script came back to me. I looked at it going, really curious to see what John did. He didn't change it at all, not a word. It was the exact same script. I go, no, I'm still not going to do it. It's terrible. So they ended up, hiring Paul Schrader. And I thought, okay, Schrader, taxi driver. He's a Calvinist. He's got religion deep in him. He's going to do something interesting with this thing. He shot that script. He turned in his director's cut. You know, Mr. Robinson and the Warner Brothers people saw the movie, fired him, brought in Rennie Harlan, said, we need some effect scenes. We need some stuff, you know, in this. Rennie decides to remake the entire movie, same cast and things, you know, put Schrader's aside and made his own version. So this movie I was going to do for like 18 million, which is, you know, fairly cheap, but I've been doing a lot of, you know, I've done like 42 films now. I knew enough about where to save money and where to put the money. And they made 2 of these movies for 40 million each. So 80 million, you know, that's spent on these 2 things that didn't work at all. So had I done it and had it not worked, that would have been, for me, the franchise of all time, stick my head in and get it chopped off. But that was one that I thought, if I can make it smart and have it have some class and have people go, well, it's not the original, but, you know, for a prequel, yeah, it was good. That was my whole objective, was to try to make it real. And the one last thing I'll say about this is that when I was researching this, I still have volumes of books on demonology, on exorcisms, on priests, on interviews with, you know, occult scientist people, all this stuff. And when I was doing all that, I had a, you know, like a sense of dread that I was living with, that I was not doing something I should. Something happened. And when I walked away, it was like this cloud, you know, and I wasn't expecting that. I mean, I fucked around with a lot of horror stuff in my life. I've had a lot of paranormal experiences in my life, starting from when I was a teenager. A lot of them available on YouTube, if you look that up, guys. But that was weird, because I was going into something that was, you know, kind of that dark and kind of frightening, especially for, you know, an ex-altar boy that I was.
Well, I mean, even with The Omen, you know, with what happened on the set of that, you know, and some of the stuff that can't be explained, but yet some people say, oh, well, you know, that's just them drumming up publicity. You know, the same thing happened with The Exorcist. I mean, the first movie, the mother hurt her back really bad when she got thrown up against the dresser, I think, wasn't it?
Yeah. Well,
Yeah.
Yeah, but that was Friedkin doing something really shitty to Ellen Burstyn. Didn't like that the effects people who had a cord on her from behind, and they, you know, yanked her, and they, you know, and he's going, this is bullshit, this is so pussy, nah, you know, yank her, boys, you know. And she kind of looks at him and goes, you know, and again, she's a professional, so she trusted it wasn't going to be that bad, but they fucking whipped her, and still to this day she's got pain in her lower back from the injury that happened. But Friedkin pushed people into really weird areas and did a lot of tricks to make actors react certain ways and stuff. At the end of the day, the movie is a horror masterpiece, no question. But I always question doing things to actors, because you don't like what they're doing with their acting, and we're going to make you really feel something, and you're going to react to something, you know, that's real. And I just, to me, you know, it's a movie, you know, it's about artifice. And if you have to do a different kind of a shot or something, you do that. You don't hurt people in the process. And I'm sure he would that now, but at the time it was all sort of like, you do what you got to do, you know, to scare people.
You said that your girlfriend's a horror buff and stuff. She likes to know. Have you guys watched Terrifier?
Oh yeah. Yeah.
Did you go to the theater to see 2? Sorry? Did you go to the theater to see part 2?
No, it disappeared here faster than I could get to to a theater. It didn't have like a decent release at all. Or you know.
I watched that, and I watched Terrifier 2 a couple times. And then I got to actually meet David, and I also got to meet Damien too, the director. The 2 nice guys right there. But I mean, just alone having somebody, again, just his facial expressions without talking, you know, there, it was like, wow, you know, there's another one that scared the shit out of me.
Yeah.
With just a smile on his face.
Yeah, it's a definitive, you know, evil clown movie, because Killer Clowns from Outer Space is more of a romp. You know, they cartoon characters, and it's fun, and in one of my bands, I do the song with the band, Killer Clowns from Outer Space. We do all like horror, movies that had horror songs in it that are also great songs. So, it's called Horror Rocks. And so it to me, that's like one of my favorite songs to do, but that's kind of sort of the tone, of that movie, it's a lot of those kind of, we're here to have fun. But Terrifier, the first one, when I saw that, I went, whoa, this is intense, because it was like normal locations, like coming out of a donut shop or something, and he's following these girls, and you're going, this isn't good. And, I've been a clown myself. My father was a clown and a magician and a fire eater. So I grew up with a freak dad, and so I went into it at one point, to make money, it was a way to pay for my movies when I was a kid, to do magic shows and shit. And I never looked at clowns as being that terrifying, but for a lot of people, they are, there's that thing. And boy, if you get around chimpanzees, monkeys, or whatever with the clown face, they go nuts. I mean, they will tear that face off of you. It just really freaks them out.
That's good to know.
Yeah. Don't put your makeup on in front of the monkeys, guys.
Yeah, my sister Jamie, she's scared to death of clowns, so I send her a picture at least every other day of a clown. Yeah. I'm mean.
But that's a definitive one. But I have to say, and then I got to go here because I on so many things I needed to get done today. But some of the new films that have come out this past year have been, to me, really good. And actually, I could see the audience shutting up and watching, which is great. Like X, and then Pearl. But I actually like.
Oh
Pearl.
Yeah.
And I gotta watch both of them.
To the next one, and the what's it called? Just right out of my head, where they're in the motel and they go underground.
Vacancy?
Yes. No, not Vacancy. No.
Barbarian.
Barbarian, right?
Oh, okay.
And that again, brilliantly done.
Brilliantly done, yes, but I was not I don't know, just the ending. I think really.
Yeah. I'll give you that for sure. The ending was not what it should have been. I think they just kind of ran out of ideas. But in terms of executing an old school horror movie that wasn't on a franchise basis, I thought that was particularly good. And Smile. I don't know if you guys have seen Smile.
I've not seen it. My daughter did, and she told me that I need to see it because she said that I'd probably end up liking it. I'm like, well, that's on my list of horror movies to watch.
But I have as I said, this is the last thing I want to talk about, but I teach film at Chapman University in Orange County, and I teach, producing, directing, writing, the whole thing, so that many of the classes starts with what is the idea for the short film you want to make. And at the end, it's screened on the big screen with great sound in their theater there for a student audience. And it turns out that like 11 years ago, Parker Finn, who wrote and directed Smile, was a student, and my son actually is a screenplay student there at that same time as well. My son's been doing basically AD work and things for years, and has worked on pretty much everything you can think of that has been mainstream big films and things. And Parker graduated and took a couple of shitty jobs, kept writing and stuff, and finally, he made this short film about that. And if you can check out the short film, which I think is on YouTube or Vimeo or one of the Vimeo, one of those things. And he was going to put it into a festival. COVID hit, festival didn't happen. He went, shit. So he put it on, online. Somebody saw it and commissioned him to write a full screenplay for that. He had not directed anything yet, and he ended up doing this thing. The short they actually shot at my school in the sound stages there. They got a decent budget. Got Kevin Bacon and Kira Sedgwick's daughter to be the lead in it and things. They screened it and it was going to be a Paramount Plus streaming movie, but they screened it for some people, and people went nuts. So the president of Paramount go, screen it again, screen it again. And it just kept coming up, people loved it. So when he came to our school and screened it for the student body, and of course I was there, I had to see if this guy has any talent or anything. And these kids, and they're like 18, 19, 20-year-olds were jumping out of their seats he did jump scares like good old days of, knowing exactly when to hit to make that jump scare work. The teaser for the movie was in front of Top Gun. So it had amazing amount of publicity. Plus they had somebody in the stands at baseball games behind home plate going,
yep. Yes, that is true.
Of all that, it went through the roof. So of course he's going to be doing another one, and that's Smile's going to be one of the new franchises. But it's a very, very simple, basic premise of somebody that just keeps smiling at you, and from there, the sky's the limit where this can go. So if you guys are filmmakers, just keep looking for that idea, and do it, budget first, and then see if you can get somebody interested. Because
I was born in the wrong decade. I was gonna ask this before you did go. Were you ever a fan of like the Canadian horror films that were coming out in like the 80s? And wasn't Black Christmas a Canadian one too?
Yeah. Same man who did a Christmas Story and Porky's. He doesn't get enough credit for this man genre, and was terribly successful at every one that he did. And then he died in a car accident with his son, and the way he went. But that, that was really like one of the first real kind of slasher in your house kind of character that was, we really didn't know, but the whole idea of the girls and what Halloween was, the babysitter murders, and that's all that it was going to be. And this was The Shape, no name, no reason, that just happened. But it all gets back to Psycho. I saw it in the theater. I was like 12, and that also was freaking out people because they never saw anything that intense. And for Janet Leigh, a huge star at that time, to suddenly be dead after the first, half hour, it's like, holy shit,
Well, that's like the Drew Barrymore scene in the beginning of Scream. Yeah. I mean, she said she's on the face of the poster, she's front and center, but yet she wanted to die right away. I mean, not many big name actors would be able to say, hey, kill me off in the first 5 minutes of your film.
Yeah.
I'm always willing to have somebody kill me. In the movies, not in real life.
I told Peter Anthony, I was like, hey, any next movie, or even with you, Tom, any next movie you need someone that you got to throw through a glass window or something, I'm your man. I'll do it. You don't even have to pay me.
I got your number. I'll come after you. Yeah. If you've seen American Werewolf in London, there's a scene where
I love that.
Car swings and there's a man that goes through a plate glass window. That's John Landis. He had to do the gag.
Yep.
Well, thank you guys so much. It's been very enjoyable to, spend some time talking horror with you. And I
thank you
out there in the dark, got some benefit. And I'll always share this one thing. Don't give up your dreams. You never know when it's going to happen. If you love this stuff, just keep it, like the brass ring out there, and I'll do whatever else I got to do. But one day I got to get that done. And I can say that even though I sort of lucked into getting Friday the 13th. But when I became 60, my rock and roll band career came back. What I was doing at 16 opened the doors, and Iron Butterfly and Pink Floyd and all those things. And that's what I wanted to do. It took till I was 60 before I finally got that dream fulfilled, touring, having an album, having music videos. So it's proof that if you just don't give it up, it'll eventually catch up with you. So hang in there, guys.
Thank you so very much, Tom.
My pleasure.
We got to have you back on the show one day down the road again. There's a couple of questions I wasn't able to ask you, but that would be for another episode, or I can just easily message you and be like, hey, Tom, do you think less is more, or do you think having people run around going amok in a horror movie is better? So
and answer that real quick, because less is more.
Yeah.
but not as less as we got on the Halloween Kills, because keeping Jamie in that hospital room, that was a bad choice because we wanted to see her out there. And of course, they were saving it for the next one. I understood the reason, but it just bothered the hell out of me that, that's the person you want to see out there, not her family. So,
Right.
but that's
I
one
thought
of
it was funny how they 2018 billed it as the last time and they still survived. It's like, come on.
the.
It's like you could have killed Jamie Lee Curtis and been done with it. But, again, thank you so very much, Tom. Big fan of yours. Mark's a big fan of yours too. Thank you for turning Friday the 13th back into what it should have been in part 5, but with part 6. We wish you could have gotten to do 7. Hopefully one day someone in Hollywood will smarten up and be like, hey, we need to get him back. So,
I've got the scripts. If I just need somebody to go, you're the guy. So, that's part of, my extended dream here to go back and do it again.
all right, Tom. Well, thank you so very much. We will
Thank
talk to you later, bro. Thank you.
Thank you.
Bye.
You have a good night.
Well, everyone, that was the episode that we promised you. The interview that was, I would say, probably one of my favorites. I mean, we did talk a lot about Friday the 13th, which I'm sorry about that, but I wanted to get to know more about his process of bringing Jason back, and I think it would be a disservice if me and Mark didn't ask. So, and also you can catch this on Spotify, you can catch this on YouTube. Also, check out a lot of the other podcasts in part of the Deluxe Edition Network. In January, all of our podcasts in the network are the podcasts of the month. But since I did 10-cent beer night podcast, we want to do Return of the Living Flet for this show. Go check out Kyle. Go check out the rest of the guys. They really, really do care about what they're doing. I know some people will be like, oh, they're just sitting in front of a thing talking to people and blah, blah, blah. We love to put a lot of work into this. And any podcaster can tell you that we do this because we love it. Well, some of them. But ultimately, we're all doing this because we love it. Mark, you got anything you want to say?
Nope.
Man of few words. But yeah,
you've been doing most of the talking so far, so I'll let you keep talking.
Sorry about that.
No, you can tell that you were nervous.
Well, I was nervous because we get to talk to a guy that brought back a franchise that could have been killed off. I mean, look at Halloween 3. They could have said, well, we don't want to make anymore, and that would have been it. Granted, it probably would have saved us a lot of heartache and what the other movies would later become, but, hey.
Right. But can't complain. I like most of them. So. And,
anyone that's listening, Tommy still has a lot of great ideas. Hire the guy. I mean, what's going to happen? He's going to make you a great movie. He'll do his research. He'll do his due diligence. And he'll make you a damn good movie. Same with Peter Anthony.
Sounds like a great idea. Sounds like he has a few great ideas for movies.
Same with Peter Anthony. Same with Jason Brooks. Same with the guys that did Never Hike Alone, Never Hike in the Snow, Slash and Cast when they did their. You can keep going down the line.
Blood for Slash and Cast. You could keep going with the fan films for any of them, but right now, it's a good time.
Yep. And also next Tuesday we will have Thomas. I can't say your last name. I'll probably get it one day, but we're gonna have another guest from one of the podcasts in the network. On the show, we're gonna be talking about wrestling, big wrestling news, big talking, just like we do now. So, remember to like, subscribe, and comment, as it really does help out this channel, and hit that notification icon so that you never miss a live stream or anything that we do. We love the support that you all give us. We couldn't have done it without y'all. and our amazing team behind us with Deluxe Edition Network and our team here at the Stephen Jarvis and Friends podcast featuring Mark Bensett Jr. So till then, guys, thank you and goodbye.